Sometimes we say or do things that we regret later in life. In 1984, Yamaha made such a statement while introducing their race replica, the RD500. They stated, "No one has ever built a road machine so close on technical basis to a current GP winner." And they went even further, stating that they don't expect anyone to do the same anytime soon. But soon, merely a year later, they had to eat their own words. Thanks to the debut of the remarkable Suzuki RG500, which took the motorcycling world by storm. Suzuki exhibited commendable courage by presenting not only an appealing visual image, but also an authentic experience of Grand Prix performance with RG500. Unlike Yamaha's underwhelming and heavy-handed approach with the RD500, Suzuki endowed their machine with a generous amount of power emanating from its very unusual four-cylinder power plant. Why call it an unusual power plant, you may ask? We'll tell you more about it a little bit later. Along with the Suzuki and Yamaha, Honda also made a race replica, the NS400. With these replicas, these manufacturers were trying to give their customers the experience of what a GP machine actually is. However, with all but one of these machines, the purchase only results in a mere imitation of the original design. This is not to undermine the quality of the others. In fact, they are far from being subpar. Nevertheless, it is the RG500 that truly comes closer to the mark, bearing an astonishing resemblance to its racing counterpart, even more so than one might imagine. Starting with the design, the Suzuki RG500 bears a striking resemblance to its race counterpart, with its design deeply rooted in the renowned 1983 factory racer, the XR45. Notably, the engine components, including the crankcases, barrels, and overall layout, closely mirror those found in the bikes ridden by the factory riders. Like the design, the aforementioned unusual power plant/engine of the RG500 is incredibly similar to the racing machine. This is a liquid-cooled four-cylinder engine where the cylinders are arranged in a square formation supported by two-stepped crankshafts. The crankshafts rotate in opposite directions in order to eliminate the gyroscopic effect. These cylinders are cleverly arranged at 180-degree angles to one another, resulting in a firing sequence where opposite pairs ignite simultaneously. This design achieves impeccable mechanical balance, ensuring exceptionally smooth operation. Unlike the Yamaha RD500's 50-degree V4 configuration, the RG's remarkable smoothness eliminates the need for additional balance shafts that typically diminish power output and add weight. As a result, the RG gains a considerable advantage of around 8 bhp in terms of performance due to the absence of balance shafts, enhancing both its power-to-weight ratio and compactness. The other unique feature of this engine is the easily swappable cassette-type gearbox, again just like in the race machine. The primary intent of this feature is to allow the rider to change the gear ratios according to the track layout that they are riding on. Although the gear ratios chosen for the Roadster gearbox are generally well matched for high-speed applications, it is worth noting that the presence of 5 locating dogs on each pinion somewhat slows down the gear selection mechanism. The one major difference between the road and racing gearboxes was the inclusion of a shock damper on the road-going one. The shock damper has been incorporated into the lay shaft to reduce the load on the gearbox, thereby ensuring its longevity. Starting the engine differs from typical Japanese machines because the kickstarter engages the input shaft of the gearbox rather than the clutch outer gear. Consequently, the engine must be initiated in neutral, necessitating a departure from the common practice of starting in first gear while holding the clutch. 2 pairs of flat-side Mikuni VM28SH carburetors feed the air-fuel mixture to the engine. The carburetors are arranged in pairs on either side of the engine, reminiscent of its racing counterpart. These carburetors have a remarkably short length of just 36 mm, playing a crucial role in optimizing power output for a rotary valve engine. For those of you who don't know what a rotary valve engine is, let me explain. In two-stroke motorcycle engines, a flat disc-shaped valve, commonly referred to as a disc valve or rotary valve, serves the purpose of preventing any reverse flow back into the intake port during the compression stroke. This 500cc two-stroke was able to produce 96 bhp at 10,000 rpm and 72 Nm torque at 9,000 rpm. These are quite substantial figures for a 500cc even by today's standards. The Suzuki Automatic Exhaust Control, or otherwise known as SAEC, effectively managed the abundant power of the engine. It operated through a servo power gate that opened a chamber in each cylinder head assembly, thus increasing the volume of the exhaust downpipe. Thanks to the SAEC system, pulling power was readily available from 5,000 revs, with things becoming significantly more exhilarating at 7,000 revs. The engine continued to deliver its thrilling performance beyond the 10,000 RPM red line, reaching an astounding 12,000 RPM. While Suzuki's published power curves indicate no actual increase in power beyond 9,500 RPM, riders experienced a different sensation when riding the RG. And if the stock power figures weren't exciting enough, it can be readily enhanced through simple adjustments, resulting in significant improvements. Some mildly modified machines have achieved impressive outputs, reaching up to 108 bhp and 76 Nm torque. A popular modification involves installing aftermarket exhaust pipes, which with slight rejetting can instantaneously revamp your motorcycle. This is primarily because original manufacturers are bound by noise regulations that limit engine revolutions, whereas aftermarket modifications are not subject to such restrictions. The RG500 boasted a total weight of 154 kilograms, which may seem heavy at first glance. However, this was primarily due to the equipment necessary for road legality. Once these components were removed, the weight dropped significantly to a more competitive 130 kilograms. Interestingly, in its standard configuration, the Gamma actually weighed 9 kilograms less than the Honda NS400R. The motorcycle featured an aluminum square section frame inspired by the GSXR 750, albeit with a sturdier steering head. This robust steering head not only provided stability, but also served as the entrance to the 6-liter airbox and filter housing. Overall, the RG500's frame held everything together seamlessly and offered an incredibly precise riding experience. When it comes to handling, the RG performs exceptionally well, especially on a track. However, due to its 16-inch front wheel, the bike can become a bit lively on rough, pothole-ridden roads. In its time, the RG was at the forefront of chassis design with its 110/90 16-inch front and 120/90 17-inch rear tires, which may be considered narrow by today's standards. The front forks were equipped with telescopic oil-damped units and offered adjustable spring preload, air valves, and an effective anti-dive mechanism positioned at the front of each fork slider. The rear suspension system, known as the full floater, featured a rocker arm assembly and provided adjustable settings accessible through a remote knob. Despite its agility, the bike had a relaxed head angle of 30 degrees and a reasonably long trail of 110 millimeters. Braking power was delivered by a set of twin 260mm floating discs clamped by a pair of 4-pot calipers at the front, which were identical to those used on the GSXR 750 of that era. At the rear, a smaller disc and basic caliper handled the braking duties. But despite being at the pinnacle of two-stroke engineering, the RG500 was only made for 2 years from 1985 to 1987, and about 9,500 units were made during its production run. The Suzuki RG500 was conceived during the height of the Japanese motorcycle craze. The RG500 stood out as the ultimate two-stroke machine. As one of the last representatives of the two-stroke era, it faced its demise due to evolving regulations. To those who are fortunate enough to own this incredible machine, I encourage you to bring them out of storage, give them a good cleaning, and hit the road, so that the rest of us, who may not be able to own one in our lifetime, can revel in the nostalgic sound and aroma of this legendary two-stroke, even if it's only on special occasions. Let's revive the spirit of these motorcycles and keep the memories alive. Before signing off, if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, or if you loved it, please consider subscribing to the channel. See you guys next time. Ride safe.